This is a Global Original Podcast. As you can hear from the echoey sound of my voice, I'm recording this from the fridge in which Boris Johnson is going to hide to get away from reporters who are asking him how well Brexit's going. There's nothing in here. At the moment. Coming up, a man who is obsessed about power surges calls to complain, and a cab driver explains who he doesn't want in the back of his cab. But first, an old frenemy calls for what turns out to be a very brief chat. Let's have Newcastle. Hello, Ken.
Good evening, Nick. The root cause of the problem...
Oh,
Nick,
God, not you again. Not you again. I can't stand it. I heard your call last night. Are you a sinner, Nick? Are you casting the first stone, Nick? Painful, Ken. Not 2 nights in a row. Take a break. You have delighted us enough. He used to call all the time. Like all the time. Not just my show, but like 24 hours a day. I don't think he ever slept. He wanted to spread the word of God, Nick. 24 hours a day he'd be calling this station. Just talking about Jesus. Just excruciating. I'll see you at the font. Bring your own cup. Battersea. Hello, Francis.
Really good, Nick. That's a way to deal with a caller.
Well, not all callers, just that one. I mean, some are just chronic callers. They just call and they call and they call, and it's the same call every time. Nick, have you heard the word of God?
I'm going to change the subject into something a bit more kind of dour. I'm going to bring it down a bit.
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Right. The bombing in Sri Lanka.
Wow, it doesn't get more dour than that. I didn't think we were going to go quite this far down.
Well, you haven't even finished yet. The bombing in Sri Lanka.
Well, wait a minute. Wait. Are we going to get dour-er?
No.
No. Carry on.
No, I don't do that kind of thing. There's like how many Sudanese people died? Like 60 or something?
I don't know.
A lot died there, and all we hear about is the one English woman. Like that's all the press reports.
Yeah,
that
does.
I
know exactly what you mean. That grates on me as well. But 100 people died, but we don't concentrate on them at all, as though they're not actually human beings, unless they've got a British passport.
Yeah, exactly. It happened. The same one happened in Barcelona. One English boy got killed, and like 15 Spanish people got killed.
Yeah.
You don't hear diddly squat about them.
Well, that's right. But, that's just human beings. If a person gets killed in another town, then you are not remotely interested. It's got nothing to do with you. You don't care, and you won't even stop eating if that story comes up on the news. But if somebody gets killed in the house next door to you, then even if you didn't know him, it's of interest. So I suppose really that's part of what makes us our interest peak for news stories. That and if one person gets killed in Sri Lanka, that's not news. But if a lot of people get killed all at the same time, then it is news. It's just a weird thing that if you analyse it, then it doesn't really say much that's positive about the human race. But anyway, well spotted, Francis. Was that all?
Thanks, sir.
Okay, we can climb out of that dour hole now. This person says, regarding the conversation about cannabis use, I think it should be legalised. I agree the violence around alcohol far outweighs OUTWAYS. I'm going to be pedantic about this kind of thing. What?
They put that on, not me, but I didn't have time to change it.
All right, I'm not blaming you.
Oh, no, outweighs.
It's got nothing to do with you. You're just cutting and pasting. He's just the cut and paste man. Now, I'm terrible at this myself, so don't think that I'm being superior. I'm just highlighting my own flaws by highlighting other people's. So it's not your fault, whoever you are. It's I take full responsibility. He says, I agree the violence around alcohol far outweighs the dangers around cannabis. I believe the police time could be better spent addressing more serious crimes. If it was decriminalised, the criminality around it could be reduced. Could be reduced. If it was decriminalised, it would be reduced, I think, by definition. Wouldn't it? Hello? It amuses me because the person through the glass he thinks that I'm addressing him, and then the look of panic that comes across his face, it's delicious. I'll do that every show now. As long as I'm being... Oh, hey, are we having fun yet?
No.
That's right. North London. Hello, John.
Oh, good evening.
Oh, good evening, John.
What I want to report to you is the fact that 10 months ago I was hit by a huge power failure on my system. And
What?
It's done terrific damage
On your system?
to all my computers and so on.
Oh, right.
You know, I am a
It did
qualified
damage. Why would it do
engineer.
if to your computer? If
I beg your
the
pardon?
power shuts off, why would that damage
It's
it?
ruined 3 computers.
How?
And how?
Yes.
By a huge power surge on the
Oh,
supply.
a surge. Right.
It's rather close to the Glenfield situation. It's almost identical. But fortunately, my
Not
equipment
really.
protected
You're talking about Grenfell Tower?
by a filter, and it blew that apart.
I don't think this is a tragedy on that scale, John.
Now, no, I reported it to the police
Yeah.
almost after
A
about
power
week and
surge.
so
You
on.
reported a power surge to the police.
I reported to the people that came along,
Yeah.
and they fiddled around, and they haven't corrected it at all. They
Fiddling about.
say they're not going to reimburse me. I've written to the Queen. I've written to all the power, the fire people, and so on.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, John, when you finish doing that, can you write to me? I can't wait not to read that letter.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
Does this show make any sense so far?
No.
Nick said, give Ken his own LBC show. He never fails to make me laugh as I fan the flames from hell, says Sarah. Talking about that religious type that called in. I mean, I was very, very short with him, for which I apologise. I'm definitely going to hell for that, if not for anything else, for that one call. But it's just so excruciating every time. Nick, I want to bring to you the word of God. Every time it feels like a call from the 5th century. Painful. But I do hope he calls again because, I will enjoy the chat. So, let me say again, the number of cannabis users arrested in major cities has plunged in the last 10 years, and not by a small amount. That word plunge gives an indication as to the amount of reduction we're talking about here. 77% down in Greater Manchester. Have the people of Greater Manchester stopped smoking dope?
No.
No. But they've stopped being arrested for it. It's 59% down in London. This is between the years 2008 and 2018. And the part of the reason is that police persons aren't arresting them anymore. They've just decided to not do it. They thought it up and have done it. And this is just a few days, this information is coming out just a few days after what they call 420, which is the sort of marijuana celebration day in America. Well, that's what it's become. And that's the way they write dates in America. They do the month first and then the date. So it's 420, 20th of April, May, January, February, March, April. That's what we're in. I often have to look at I often have to look at what year it is. Is that just me? I check, because it's always down at the bottom right-hand of the screen of your computer, and the amount of times I have to check to see what year it is. That's probably just me, isn't it? This email says, regarding President Trump... Oh, really? We have to talk about the screaming Mimi already? I mean, I've got detailed files. I can talk about him later on, perhaps. I want to talk about aliens as well, because there was a couple of stories out that are somewhat alarming. And I don't necessarily want to make it a topic. I'll just pass on the information. Alien information coming your way. This email says, regarding President Trump coming, please, could we all let him visit us? Then once he's here, we can pretend that we don't know. we can pretend that we don't know who he is. God, that'd drive him insane, wouldn't it? I mean, talk about there's no more thin-skinned person on the face of the planet, and also a person who obsesses about his ratings and how much other people like him. Wouldn't that be great? We could pretend that nobody knows who he is.
Nobody knows who the hell he is.
That's what I'm saying. God, can you imagine the whining?
I'm a whiner, and I keep whining and whining.
It occurred to me, that fella who was whining about his power surge...
Stop whining.
He is the same person that I was criticised for a couple of weeks ago for dismissing his assertion that he was a qualified industrial electrical engineer. It was the same guy. We were talking about solar power, and he called in to instruct me about, I don't know, I can't remember what it was exactly. And I didn't think that he sounded very believable, and I kind of dismissed him. And the amount of, I don't normally read emails, to be honest, but every now and again I'll glance at them when I come in. And the amount of people that say, it's absolutely disgraceful, that man certainly knew what he was talking about. That guy... The qualified electrical engineer who's just complaining that he had a power surge on his computer. I mean, I don't know anything about electrics, but I know how to put a power surge preventer on the plug that my computer goes into. God, there's so many fakers on calling up this radio station. Well, not the radio station, me. Why are you always picking on me? I swear, we're going to have to make this phone number X directory. They call. Well, how do they find me? They keep calling and calling. Shepperton, hello, Mick.
Yeah, so I want to talk about why weed should be legal.
Go on.
Well, it just seems to me that today, like, people are allowed, like, you're allowed to choose pronouns, you're allowed to have abortions, you're allowed to pretty much do whatever you want, you're allowed to drink, you're allowed to smoke cigarettes. Why not smoke a little bit of weed? What's the worst that's going to happen?
You get arrested, go to jail, lose your job, lose your house.
Well, that's one interesting thing which I'd like to talk about is the job thing. While it is illegal now, if you do a drugs test, like if you're a heavy smoker, weed will stay in your system for like 6 months, and it's not really that bad a drug compared to like heroin or something. But like, if you do like any of the harder drugs like cocaine or heroin and stuff like that, it'll be out of your system within a week.
Yeah, or alcohol.
So you're not penalised for it at all.
Right. I don't know what the level is of because you would. I mean, you'd have to assume that there's a certain level that you beyond which you trip some sort of. I'm finding it hard to express this in words. So I'm going to express it in the form of dance. I had no idea I was going to say that. Yes, there must, when you blow into the thing on the roadside, if you have consumed some marijuana last month, I think you're right in saying that it does remain in your system, but you're not feeling the effects of it. So there must be some level below which it doesn't trigger. That's what you're saying, isn't it? Well, that's what I'm saying.
They're two different drugs tests. The roadside one, I'm completely fine with that one, because that one, from my understanding, essentially is just the same as one which you'd use for a drink driver.
Right.
So, like, obviously, if you've been smoking weed, and you're driving, you want to be able to detect that, because that should be a punishable offence.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It should be treated the same as drink driving.
Yes, but no, if what you say is correct, that it does stay in the system, but so you might be, shall I restate my case? It might be that you did it last month and you're not currently feeling the effects of it, but it might still show up in your system somehow.
100%. That would be 100% on a urine test.
A urine test.
Employers use.
Okay.
Did you understand? So, like, if you could like go to Amsterdam for a bit, and not smoke weed, go a little bit wild, come back and do a drugs test, a urine test for an employer. You could do it a month later and not be feeling the effects or anything. But
yeah, I don't think you need to go to Amsterdam. I think you can stay in this country and you'll be more likely to come across marijuana than you would in Amsterdam. I think more people per head of population smoke it in this country than do in Holland.
Well, that's the thing. Why not? Apart from like people eating too many cupcakes on a night time or watching like staying up too late, binge watching box set DVDs or something, what's the worst that's going to happen compared to people like stabbing each other, like doing cocaine, going out and getting all riled up,
right,
or drinking, losing any sense of inhibition?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you did bring up that whole cupcake issue, because that is certainly something to consider. All right, thanks a lot, Mick. 0345 6060 973. Which ones of these have I not read? A power surge destroyed his computers. Hasn't he heard of surge protectors, said Jim. Yeah, well, that fella is apparently a highly trained electrical engineer. But I suppose, like hairdressers, always have the worst hair. Have you noticed that? You go get your hair done, and the person that's doing it has a hair like a fright wig. They always have the worst hair. Even the famous ones have got terrible hair, like Nicky, what's his name? He looks like he's taken all of the hair that the Bee Gees have stopped using and stuck it to his scalp. They always have abysmal hair. So maybe electrical engineers, they just can't be bothered with their own electrical engineering issues when they get back from work. And so when there is a surge, it knocks everything out. Either that or he was just a faker and he was just making it up. I think that's probably it. This says there's such a thing called a surge protector device which can be installed in your fuse board to prevent electrical equipment from being damaged. All electrical based in Crawley. Thanks. What? No name given, but guessing that's a company. What?
John has called back. He's saying that his filters were blown apart when the surge happened.
Right.
So he's just trying to say that's... He says you're incorrect.
Well, it doesn't sound like me.
I don't know. I don't know what his filters are, but...
You want to check your filters, mate? This says, I refuse to believe that cannabis use is down in the UK. I take the train and loads of British youngsters between Amsterdam and Schiphol Airport, stinking like hell and stoned as a smoked shrimp. Says Martin with 2 A's on Twitter. That's Maarten. He's so stoned he doesn't even know how to spell his own name. I'm not saying that cannabis use is down in the UK. I'm saying that arrests of cannabis users is down. Is this thing on? Can you hear me? That's the point of what I'm talking about. The police have taken it upon themselves to police this drug less than they used to, which seems to be understandable to me. I mean, what do we read about on a daily basis? Some crazed kid has stabbed another because they looked at them wrong. Well, I suspect that most of us would agree that the police should be concentrating on that more than just arresting somebody who is listening to Steel Pulse on their stereo. Unless you know otherwise, in which case you must correct me. Hang on, I'm going to cough. That builder's dust is... I went to the doctor and she listened to my chest and she said there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Well, apart from being very, very small and somewhat feminine, which I thought was rude. This says, you don't blow into it, it's a wipe, which they wipe around the inside of your mouth on a stick, says Uncle Kim on Twitter. Well, that sounds awful. Now, wouldn't it be great if we could make a lot of money from cannabis instead of spending a lot of money in this ridiculous pursuit on this war of drugs, which won't ever win here, there, or anywhere? It's not achieved success in any place it's ever been tried, including America.
I'll bring us into war.
Yeah, the war on drugs has failed over and over and over again. And like a crazy person, the government keeps doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different result. Actually, I don't think they do expect a different result. I think they know that it's a failure. It's just that they don't want to admit that it is, because too much loss of face. And it would also require them to do something else, which will have a negative consequence for at least one individual, which the press will fall on in order to blame the politician that had anything to do with a change of policy. That's it, isn't it? It's a fear of a headline in the Daily Mail. So, like I was saying, the date 420 has become the sort of celebration of Marijuana Day in America, the 20th of the 4th. And apparently global cannabis suppliers struggle to keep up with demand on that day. Suppliers in the US, where recreational cannabis is legal in 10 states, and Canada, where the drug was decriminalised for recreational use last year, reported difficulties fulfilling orders on what's been called the industry's Black Friday were reported everywhere. Lines to dispensaries across California were out the door and round the block. And that means money, honey. There's some people making a lot of money. Of course, there's people making a lot of money from it in this country. Every single one of them are criminal. A spokesperson for the Canadian government... by the way, Canada decriminalised marijuana. Is Canada still working? Is it still there? Is it still a functioning country? Has everybody killed everybody else in a marijuana stupor? Nothing happened. A spokesperson for the Canadian government said Health Canada is... That's... I don't know what that is, but it's maybe their NHS? I don't know. Anyway, Health Canada is aware of reports of localised shortages of cannabis products in some markets and for some product lines. That's the Canadian government saying that, alerting people to a lack of product. It's all gone mainstream. Pizza Hut doesn't get more mainstream than Pizza Hut. They cut the price of their Hershey triple chocolate brownie to coincide with the Weed Day in America. They saw an opportunity and went for it. The cab company Lyft offered rides in Massachusetts for $4.20 on the day 420, saying it didn't want people to risk driving under the influence. Don't drive under the influence. Human beings can't drive when they are clean and sober and paying 100% attention to the road. Never mind being out of it on anything. And, by the way, turn your stereo down.
Rock and roll!
You can't concentrate with that racket going on. Ben & Jerry's. They partnered with a San Francisco cannabis supplier to give all of their customers a free tub of their half-baked flavour. A combination of cookie dough and fudge brownie. The Vermont-based ice cream maker also called on consumers to pressure lawmakers to expunge prior marijuana convictions for anyone arrested for smoking pot. The amount of people that are in prison, particularly in America, for having something to do with something that just grows out of the ground. I mean, if you just think about that for a minute, it just grows out the ground like a weed. There were organised weed celebrations in Denver and San Francisco and Washington, D.C. and New York and in London, you remember, where thousands of people called on the government to decriminalise the Class B drug. And the government said...
No.
And furthermore...
No.
Do they have any intention of changing their mind in any way, shape or form?
No.
Of course not. Because that would mean actually doing something. And doing something may have a negative consequence. So much better to do nothing, even though you know that doing nothing doesn't work. What a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
ArcView, a cannabis investment and market research firm, estimates U.S. retail sales of cannabis products jumped to $10.5 billion last year. $10.5 billion. All of that tax money that in this country is going to waste. That in this country is allowing criminals to buy sports cars and machetes, whereas it could be providing school places for children or hospital beds for the sick, for instance. Wouldn't that be a better idea? Or am I completely out of my mind? This says, remind that caller who wants to legalise weed that regular cigarettes don't alter the mind, but weed does. Yeah, regular cigarettes don't alter your mind, perhaps, but they do a bit. But they just kill you, that's all. I mean, there's a slight negative side effect of death. But anyway, it says, weed does alter the mind and could most certainly affect your work. Just imagine if your dentist... Just imagine if your dentist was high on weed. Now, wait a minute, let me just try and imagine that. Yeah, no, I wouldn't like that. Well, that's a silly thing to say. Just imagine if your dentist was drunk. You can get alcohol everywhere. I suspect John's power surge filters are made from tinfoil, says Kath in North Wales. You maybe want to check that, John. And this says, my girlfriend is a hairdresser and has stunning hair, and she definitely did not ask me to send this, says George. Aberdeen. Hello, Keith.
Hi, Nick. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
I'm glad you brought up that point about smoking, because that's one of the reasons I'm phoning you. Do you know my partner has been smoking cannabis for a long time?
I didn't know that.
Because she suffers from really bad chronic back pain. She was born with scoliosis, which is a twisted spine.
Right.
So she gets a great relief from smoking it. But about a year and a half ago, we managed to find someone who could supply us with cannabis vapes. And because she is now smoking cannabis in a vaporized form, she has actually given up smoking real cigarettes.
What's a cannabis? Wait. What's a cannabis vape?
It's basically an e-cig. It's the cannabis oil in the same setup as an electronic cigarette. So you're vaping the cannabis oil where you don't have to mix it with any tobacco. You see, a lot of people don't give up smoking because they smoke a couple of joints at night. So they think, well, if I'm not going to give up smoking joints, there's no point in me giving up smoking. But if you can buy your cannabis in a vape and you can vape your cannabis in an oil, then you didn't need to have anything to do with tobacco at all. And she gave up cigarettes because she found a new way of taking her oil, taking it in a vape.
Right. And how?
So by making it legal, it could also help people come off cigarettes, because I assume there's a lot of people still smoking cigarettes because they're smoking joints, and they just think, well, if I'm not going to give up the whole lot, I love my joint too much, I'll just carry on smoking.
Well, people do talk about gateway drugs, and cigarettes are definitely a gateway drug to smoking joints.
Yep, and I tell you something, I work as a taxi driver, and I would much rather have someone who's had a couple of joints in my car than someone at the end of the night who's blootered out their brain.
Yeah. It's a good long time since I've heard the word blootered there, Keith. Good to hear it again. You don't want a blootered numpty in the back of your cab.
But no, vaping it is definitely a better way to take your cannabis. It cuts out the need for any tobacco.
Right.
Take it in an electronic device like an e-cig and just put it in there instead.
And I would imagine that if there is a health benefit in vaping nicotine rather than smoking cigarettes, then there should also be, you would assume, a health benefit in vaping marijuana rather than smoking even neat marijuana.
Well, I could go into a whole different thing with you because cannabinoids are actually good for you. And the cannabinoids, actually, your own body produces cannabinoids, but it doesn't produce enough for you to feel the effect of it. So when you vape cannabis or take cannabis oil, it boosts your immune system and sends it rocketing through the roof. Cannabis is actually good for you. There's so many people taking raw cannabis in smoothies now. If you look it up on YouTube, because of the benefits of the cannabinoids in the cannabis, they're putting raw cannabis into smoothies. And raw cannabis, by the way, doesn't get you stoned. It's only when you heat cannabis up that you get stoned and you activate the THC. That's why when you put it in a joint, you're heating it up by setting it on fire. You put it in space cakes, you're heating it up when you put it in your oven. But you eat raw cannabis, put it in a smoothie and treat it like a vegetable. You didn't get stoned, but you get all the health benefits of the cannabinoids.
Well, I can neither confirm or deny that, but I'll take your word for it until proven otherwise. So thanks a lot, Keith. Well, there's all sorts of medicines that are available in high street chemists that have cannabis oil in them for all sorts of things, bone and muscle aches, and you can put it on your face to make you look more pretty. There's all sorts of stuff that is available that you can use. The blooming lights have just gone out. There they go. I do forget to walk around during the news. It's my fault. User error. But it seems that the first duty of government is to look after the health of its citizens, yes? Well, in that regard, this government, and the one before, and the one before that, and the one before that, back to infinity, are singularly failing in their duty. Because it is illegal, people can't find a more, or rather a less damaging way of taking it. Specifically because the government insists on it being illegal. And remember, we're where we are falling behind other countries. It's not as though there aren't other examples to follow. Most of the states in America have either legalized it outright or have legalized it for medicinal use. And my understanding of it being legal for medicinal use is you just go to your GP, you pay them for your visit, of course, and you ask them to write you a prescription, and they will do it. And that's the end of it. That's the nature of the legalizing it for medicinal use. You just got to go through your GP, and if your paid for GP says no, then you simply go to another one. Because in America, health is all about the money, honey. And Canada, I mean, conservative small c Canada have legalized it or decriminalized it. Portugal decriminalized everything. So we're beginning to look like stick in the muds. Not because of any perceived negative effects on the people of this country. I believe it's because of the perceived or the potential negative effects on the reputations of politicians. Nobody wants to be the one that says, OK, go ahead, legalise it, because the press will be on the edge of their seats, just desperate to find some negative story that has come from that legalisation. And they will pin that negative effect on the politician involved. And that's why they're all timorous to do anything. Caught in the headlights they are. But it seems that if it is true that the war on drugs has not affected a change in the number of people that are smoking it or taking any other drug. In fact, the numbers seem to go up and up while the war drags on and on. So the war isn't working, and it is sending people into the arms of criminals, and furthermore is preventing them from accessing ways of taking it more safely. And by extension, that means that the government is actually ruining the health of particularly young people, almost as though they don't care about young people. But that can't be true, can it? 0345 6060 973. Like I said before, full warning, I have alien news. I don't want it to be a topic, but I have alien information to pass on to you, which is alarming. And that'll have to be for next time, because that's it. If you subscribe to this podcast, the next episode will get squirted up your life as though by magic on Monday. And don't forget the podcast that I do with Carol McGiffin, which is called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol, in which Carol McGiffin and I try to solve people's problems while laughing our faces off. We have a lot of fun doing it, and I think you'll enjoy it. If you want us to solve your problem, then send it to the following address: nickandcarol@global.com. That's nickandcarol@global.com. And prepare to be completely satisfied. There's also, by the way, the podcast that is put out of my shows. We strip out the ads and the news, making it much quicker and more efficient to listen to. And I'll be back on the radio Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. And until then, I'll be seeing you.
Bye-bye.